Well, I managed to get my hands on one of these to do a review and a test of, and some of you might already know what this is. It is a light anti-gas respirator Mark II, because I had a Mark 1, and that was from 1944, and surprisingly that still worked, which is great. So here's a LaG Mark II. So this is kind of interesting, because this is obviously the one that would later become the Canadian C3 when the Canadians changed it slightly, but it bears a very strong resemblance even without, you know, going into too much detail on why. The rubber is more flexible than my LaG Mark 1, whether or not that was just an individual mask thing. But my other one had rubber cut really thick, and this one has rubber that's cut a bit more thin and flexible, but it's more like the rubber on the Canadian C3. It's got the sort of standard elasticated British head harness. Interestingly there, you can actually say there's number 4, it says on there, but Mark II, so light anti-gas mask 2. And interestingly, there's 2 dates on this one, December 1952 and something which is 56, which I'm assuming is actually going to be 1956, but I know of a lot of these, sometimes bits are made in different factories, so it's not necessarily that the entire mask is assembled all together until different dates on the components. There's a stamp underneath which says Mark 6 something or other. Because I guess technically light anti-gas respirators would be Mark 6 respirators, because you had Mark 5 GSR, and then you had the LaG series after that, light anti-gas respirators. So that would make sense. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to obviously test this. I'm going to probably just stick a Finnish 60mm filter on it. This didn't come with a filter. The old filters for these have asbestos in. So, you know, it's probably best, even if I did have one of those, not to use that filter. So you've got your 60mm screw intake port there. Now, what's interesting about the LaG Mark II is apparently that's a voice diaphragm there. That's the normal exhale valve going around the outside, but that's your voice diaphragm. So when we test the mask, we will see how well this works. From the inside, that just looks like a metal grate there. Very simple inside, no oral nasal cup again, like the previous LaG. So that's one of the things that the Canadians improved when they did the C3, is unlike this Mark II one, you know, no oral nasal cup, but the C3 has an oral nasal cup. Not much else really that's different with it as far as I can tell externally. As I was saying, the difference between this and the LaG Mark 1, the LaG Mark 1 has the flat sort of exhale valve with no voice diaphragm on. This has basically the bit that has this kind of nipple thing on, which is your voice diaphragm on top of the exhale valve. How well it works, we'll find out. So what I'm going to quickly do is give this a very quick little, you know, wash and clean, just so I'm not got any dusty stuff that I'll be inhaling when I test it. I'll grab probably my Finnish 60mm filter, then we'll test this mask. Right, hopefully you can see that I'm here wearing the mask. I had a bit of trouble getting these straps adjusted, because one thing that's a really marvellous thing about modern masks is the straps are much easier to adjust and faster. Old masks, not so much, but anyway, it's done. Now, the fact this has no oral nasal cup in it, and I've not put any anti-dim paste on the inside, is becoming very obvious very quickly for me. It's all steamed up and it looks like I'm looking through a Vaseline filter. But anyway, the important thing is that it works. So let's try it. Okay, I can get a slight bit of smell, so I'm just going to try and get these straps even tighter. But there's no guarantee that can't be the filter. If it doesn't work, I'll try another filter, but the smell's dissipating now, so... Now, yeah, I can't smell anything again, so we'll give that a couple of minutes. So, the LaG Mark II is really just an improvement on the LaG Mark III. The Mark 1, and then the Canadian C3 is kind of like a LaG Mark III. Now, I have heard people say that there was a LaG Mark III made, which is very similar to the Canadian C3, but I've never actually seen any pictures of it, so whether or not that's true, I don't know. But obviously, if you were going to get one of these to want it to be practical, the Canadian C3 is definitely the most practical, because it has an oral nasal cup and probably the nicest rubber of the lot. However, this thing is not bad for the time it came out, and it's actually very good. Considering the LaG Mark 1 came out near the end of World War II, it was a very good mask for them. And this is fairly good for a mask from the 50s. I don't know if you can see the stamp there, you probably can't. But this is 1952 Avon rubber, so maybe, you know, it saw use in the Korean War, probably not.
But then, like all these masks, they got sold as surplus to Denmark, who kept them for years in service because they weren't particularly worried about expiration dates on masks. And then they eventually sold them as general, like army surplus to the world when they got rid of them. Now, I'm just wondering if I can maybe tighten this up a bit at the top, because the problem at the moment is the mask keeps falling down onto my nose. So, is it possible to... Let's have a look. That's a bit better. But again, I said I'm not a fan of straps on these retro masks, because the strap systems are never ideal for quick adjustment. If you're not familiar with this, basically, on a modern mask, if you're a lucky person and if you only have a couple of gas masks and you have modern masks, you simply just have straps that you pull on each bit and then it does up. For example, the Finnish M61 I think is a really good example of really easy to adjust straps from a relatively early generation mask. Some of the Russian ones, like the MM1, are alright, although as far as I'm aware, the 5-point head harness off memory that only have 2 adjustable things, but it pulls it tight all around. The best things are the modern 6-point harnesses, where you can just simply, you know, pull all the straps as necessary. But yeah, this LaG is working fine now. It's just a case of, you know, getting the filter on, well, not the filter on tight, but the mask on tight. Because this kind of really does go into your chin there. As I said, the Canadian C3 is a much better design than this, simply because then it's slipping down again because of these old straps. See, what I need is lots more pull weight, essentially at the top of the mask, so it pulls the mask up rather than letting it just keep going down into my nose. I know the nose gap is there, but what's happening at the moment is, after a while, this is kind of pushing down on my nose, if that makes sense, rather than just sitting into the gap. I mean, maybe if these sides were tighter as well, that would fix that a bit, I don't know. But like I said, the mask is working. It fits fairly well into your face, this mask, kind of just because it's got a big open area that's probably the size of my face. But, yeah, it's easily had its time, and after a quick bit of initial adjustment, the mask is working. So if I break the seal, I'll check it's still working. Yeah, it smells like... smells like Pine air freshener. So, I'll give you a quick look at the incorrect manual they have put with this mask, and then, yeah, it's a thumbs up anyway, the mask works, and the LaG is quite a cool design.
No, I didn't film it, but it was just another bit of nightmarish comedy where I was trying to take the mask off, but because the straps on this are a bit crap and old, you have the issue of it's hard to tighten up, but once it's tight, it doesn't want to loosen, and you're just going, I'm trying to pull the thing off your face. Luckily, obviously, I can breathe, but it's not great. So as you can see, it's definitely misted up a lot inside because, as said, no oral nasal cup in this thing, and I haven't put anti-dim paste on there to absorb it. However, yeah, it's a good mask design for the time it came out, especially considering the first generation of this mask came out in, what, 1944, 45, something like that. The filter is from 1986, so again, that somehow is still working, but I would not trust a filter like that against actual poison use. It's one thing testing it against an air freshener which is weak organic vapour, it's another thing actually being exposed to much more serious gases in higher concentrations that will do a lot of damage if just a bit gets through. So, there you go, LaG MK2, it's a very good mask for when it came out. It'd be better with a better strap system. I think the Canadian C3 system, although it's a similar strap system, I think it's much easier to adjust, but maybe that's just because the bits haven't worn out as much. So, in the back compartment in these bags, if you have the Danish ones, so I believe this is a Danish thing, you'll get one of these, and it's basically, now it says civil there, so is this civil defence rather than military? I don't know. But the interesting thing is, when you get into the bit that's showing you your mask, oh, it's actually a GM38, not a light anti-gas respirator. Now, I'm pretty sure that when I had a previous, my LaG 1, I'm sure that actually does have pictures of an actual LaG in it, and not photographs, like drawings of a LaG. Anyway, you got a diagram of a filter in there, if that's any of use to you. It doesn't say asbestos, 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 which it should, but again, there you go, that's how a filter works. Your particulate filter in the front, There's your charcoal filter, and there's your second particle filter to stop the charcoal coming out. So, particle filter, vapour filter. There's your carrying bag, so that bit's correct. There's your carrying bag closed, that's still correct. Oh, but look, it's a GM38 again. So yeah, fairly interesting if you like these sort of old novelties that come with some of these things. There's nothing really else of interest in this bag. You know, there's nothing too good. Looks like some weird handwriting in there for the date stamp on the back of it. Anyway, yes, I'm glad I've got a LaG now, because this means I now have the British gas masks from a Mark IV, a Mark V, a LaG Mark1, LaG Mark2, S6, S10, and of course the also things like British civilian and civilian duty masks, and the Mickey Mouse children's masks. So I have quite a lot of the British sort of service masks, in a sense, from like pre-war, interwar years I should say, to World War II. There you go, there's a LaG Mark II, sorry, to modern day even. I mean, I do have a GSR as well, but I don't really consider that a British mask because it wasn't made by Avon. Like, this one was made by Avon in 1952. I think that's 52? Yeah, 1252, so December 1952. But there you go. LaG Mark II, yeah, it's good for what it is. I don't like the straps on it, but that's not really the fault of the mask. Most of the British masks of the time had these straps. So what I'm going to have to do is feed them back through somehow, so it's a bit looser, and then next time I wear it, if I do, you know, don't panic when I try and take it off. Apologies, there probably won't be a crossbow video this weekend or anything like that. I wanted to do one, but the weather's still awful. There's still lots of slush and snow everywhere and icy path, so I'll do that probably next week. But I'll probably do a Q&A video tomorrow. Alright, see you then.